Hi everybody, Shane Plays here with a cool unboxing video for GURPS Dungeon Fantasy. I backed this Kickstarter months ago, and I've gotten it in. I got this little box from Steve Zaxxon Games, which I did open this up, but I haven't opened up what's inside. So let's take a look at what we have. And I also want to point out, I just bought a new Yeti Blue USB. It's called a Blue mic from Yeti. It's a standalone kind of boom mic thing, and I'm really excited to have it. I'm finally upping my audio game. And you may notice that the video's crisper. I've upgraded my webcam to have higher definition. So I'm slowly working to upgrade the channel and you know, the quality of the content that I produce, not just what's in the content, but the way it's presented and how it sounds. I'll still have some tweaking to do, but anyway, this is the first test of how that goes. But so there we go. It's kind of hard to see with the wrapper on it, which I'll take care of that post haste. Really excited to have this. I love D&D. I love a lot of different types of role-playing games, but in the past year or two, I've really, past couple of years, I guess, I've really come to appreciate GURPS, and I've enjoyed playing GURPS. I was always wanting to play GURPS, but never really got a chance until I met Tony Dutra, who is the MIB rep for Arkansas, and he's been playing me through some wonderful scenarios for GURPS, and I've come to appreciate the fine-tuning and the flexibility of the system. So what Dungeon Fantasy is it's a fantasy game, you know, like D&D or whatever, but it's powered by GURPS. So, and that on the back says "Smash Evil for Fun and Profit." Pretty cool artwork right there, if you can see it, of those adventurers. So this is very much a dungeon crawl, smash down the door and loot everything, kind of old school feel to fantasy role playing. That doesn't mean you can't do it in other ways. And again, it's powered by GURPS. So even though it's focused on fantasy, and they've done this before, they've had Dungeon Fantasy, but this is, you know, they've kind of they want to do this box set with, you have everything that you need. And we'll open up this box here in a second and let you see what all's in here. But I've been very excited to get this. Here's the front artwork. So nice little lich there, and looks like some kind of awful sacrifice, and you know, pretty old school awful stuff. So let's get this bad boy open and let's see what's in here. So lid off. That's what it looks like. Little looks like a map, hex map. So let's pull this out and see. And as a matter of fact, yes, there is a nice double-sided hex map in here. And GURPS uses hexes to be more precise in its combat and facing, as opposed to a lot of games, including D&D, that use squares. So I'm not surprised to see hexes in here. There's another hex map, another double-sided hex map that you get straight out of the box. Pretty cool. This looks like a cave, and I don't know, kind of some sort of strange room. And then there's another room on this side, and it says nesting corridor and great chambers and stuff like that. So couple of cool hex maps. I'm assuming that these are for adventures that are inside, because there's some adventures in here, but maybe they're generic enough to be used otherwise. Now, here's something that I think is really cool. GURPS Dungeon Fantasy comes with these figures that you can pop out and put on a base and use. So if you don't have miniatures, and there's several in here, 2 sheets of these. They're front and back. You've got a halfling, a cleric, holy warrior, scout, knight, rock mite, fire hazard, spiders, and like again, you have front and back. And these are really handy to have because one, you know, they take the place of needing a miniature, and they take less space than a miniature. This sheet has, looks like this is sort of the enemies sheet, where the other one's the heroes. Skeletons, demon from between the stars, a toxifier, several rats, a humongous spider, a zombie. So that's what's on this sheet. So I really like this idea. I mean, I like minis too, but I think this is a really cool idea to have. Let's see what else is in the box. There's a little, I don't know if, I'm assuming this is just a spacer, because it was kind of there, you know, holding those books in. So I'm going to assume, yeah, this is just a spacer. Hello. So let's see what else is in here. Dungeon Fantasy Adventures, powered by GURPS. And this to me looks like basically, oh, and this is nice. They're fully colored, glossy pages. I don't know if you can tell that from, see if you can kind of see the gloss there. It feels really good. Oh, I love that new print smell. And this is, yeah, it explains what is role-playing, what is dungeon fantasy. Here's the basics. So it's sort of introducing not only the basics of what dungeon fantasy is, but also introducing people to, you know, the basics of GURPS, advantages, disadvantages, skills, cash and gear, and all that. So it's sort of kind of like your player's handbook, but from a GURPS perspective. And, you know, I'm looking at the tables of content. You got Barbarian, Bard, Cleric, Druid, Holy Warrior, Knight, Martial Artist, Scout, Swashbuckler, Thief, and Wizard. Player races are Catfolk, Dwarf, Elf, Half-Elf, Gnome, Half-Ogre, Half-Orc, and Halfling. So, yeah, this is the adventures. This is basically your, here's what GURPS Dungeon Fantasy is, and here's how to play it, and the classes and the races and all that stuff. Then we have a book called Exploits. So, Dungeon Fantasy Exploits. And let's see what this is. The backs of these two books so far don't really explain what the books are. They're tables, so they're making use of the back cover for more tables and stuff like that. And GURPS is very big on tables and making sure that you have all the information you could possibly want. This is not GURPS is not a system that assumes that it'll just kind of be there. I mean, they put everything out there that you could really possibly want. It's now normally I would define GURPS as in an erector set, so you can build whatever you want. But what this Dungeon Fantasy is you're getting a full-on Dungeon Fantasy role-playing game, dungeon crawl type, complete role-playing game and setting already built for you using that erector set. So Exploits, let's see what Exploits is. Yeah, this looks like this is getting more into combat. So whereas the other was explaining what it was, what Dungeon Fantasy is, and kind of the basics and the races and the classes and all this, this is talking about like rolling the dice, the types of combat maneuvers you can take. This is basically, yeah, it talks about penalties, all kinds of stuff. Let's see here. I'll get dungeon delving, rolling the dice, contest, reaction rolls, fright checks, maneuvers, combat maneuvers, movement, attacking, defending. So really, in a lot of other, in D&D terms, this would all be one book, you know, a couple of different sections of the player's handbook, right? But you've got sort of like adventurers. I said adventures earlier, but this is the adventurer's book. Here's all about being an adventurer, and here's really all the kind of the combat related stuff, exploits. So I think earlier I just said adventurers, but it's adventurers. Let's see, spells. A whole book of spells. Again, this is, think of, the sense I'm very much getting from this is think of, like if you took the player's handbook for D&D and split it into multiple smaller booklets, which is actually kind of cool. Because you say, hey, can I see your spells book? And then that way they're looking at your spells, but they're not taking your whole player's handbook. But yeah, this is just nothing but spells, really. Artwork's great. The yeah, again, glossy pages, everything. The presentation is fantastic. And again, on the back, they're using it for information tables. They're not wasting any space whatsoever. Table of contents wise, principles of magic, realms of magic, casting spells, spell classes, and the spell book. Just a whole list of spells. So very nice again. Then we have monsters. Woo-hoo, you can't have a fantasy game without monsters. So this would, I guess, be basically the monster manual of Dungeon Fantasy. And there's an introduction, getting the most out of monsters, the monster's point of view, monster traits, monster advantages. Advantages and disadvantages are very big in GURPS. It really helps flesh out characters and opponents and all that stuff. So yeah, it talks a little bit about monsters and how to run them, and then you get the bestiary. Anywhere from stone golems to the Watcher at the Edge of Time to a werewolf to a dragon. Kind of find some artwork in here to kind of give you a sense of the artwork. There's a couple of red dragons at play. So, let's see if I can find some other artwork in here for you. Here is a Peshkali. I'm guessing that's sort of Hindu influenced there. So anyway, so there's the monsters book. Then we have an adventure packed right in. Oh, look at that. On the back of the adventure, there's a hex map. That's great. You could photocopy that and make larger maps or whatever. See, they don't waste any space on this. And then so you get a Dungeon Fantasy adventure to run your group through called I Smell a Rat. And let's see here. Yeah, it's just talking about how to scale encounters, setting the scene, the dungeon, rewards, random monsters. Adventure continues. So I have a buddy named Matt Barton. He has the Matt Chat channel. He loves rats in fantasy games. So maybe I'll run him through this. There's some more artwork. And also, if you back this as a Kickstarter, see if I'm getting used to this new camera. See if I can get it up in there. If you back this on the Kickstarter, I also got several PDFs of extra content. I think including an additional adventure beyond I Smell a Rat. And then you get 3 dice. So everything in GURPS is done with 3 6-sided dice. That's it. Everything. Oh, and this is cool. For a 1, these dice have the little Steve Zaxxon Games logo. Don't know if you can see that. So I like that a lot. I collect dice, and so that'll be a nice little addition. But yeah, everything in GURPS is 3d6. And that's it. And it's an incredibly fine-tuned game. You spend a lot of time on the front end setting everything up, setting up the players, setting up characters, this, that, and the other. But once you get all the math done and everything, it just moves quick. 3d6, 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 and it's just smooth. And then here are all the bases for the those 2-sided cutouts that you could use instead of miniatures, which I like this idea a lot. Saves a lot of space. And I know there's people out there that love miniatures. I like miniatures, but there's also a lot of attraction there for me. And then there's just a couple little spacers in here. Nothing else. That's the end of the book, or the end of the box. So I'm quite pleased. Got everything here I need to jump right in and start playing some GURPS Dungeon Fantasy. I'll go over this again. You get 2 fold-out double-sided hex maps. You get the little cutout, the 2-dimensional cutouts that have the front and back artwork that you use along with the stands. Or you can use miniatures if you choose, but I love that. You don't even have to have miniatures right out of the box. You get everything you need. The custom Steve Zaxxon Games Pyramid 6-siders, which I really like these a lot. See if I can pull one out so you can get a better look at it. So, I don't know. There you go. Like that a lot. Then you get the books. You get Adventurers, which is the thickest of the bunch. Then you get Exploits, which is basically the combat and the the stuff, how you adventure. Then you get a spells book. There you go. Then you get a monsters book. And you get an adventure called, let's see if I can find it, I Smell a Rat. There you go. So, and I like this. This is nice. It feels like an old school, about the thickness of an old school adventure. You know, I'm assuming you could probably play this in 1 or 2 sessions. So, really, really, really pleased. Been waiting a long time to get this in. I mean, by no means am I going to stop playing. If you can, hold on, can you see my cat down here? Cat. She's trying to get in the box and making noise. By no means am I going to stop playing D&D or other games, but I really want to play this as well, whenever I can. Again, I love GURPS. I love old school dungeon fantasy, kick in the doors type dungeon crawl action. So, and then again, there's the box. And I'll show you Bonnie, my cat, is really trying to wreck my video. And then there's the box. So thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for watching. Hope this was enjoyable to you. If you're not familiar with GURPS, check it out. I really do think it's a cool system. And even if you're not into GURPS or don't want to play this or whatever, I hope you just enjoyed looking at what came in the GURPS Dungeon Fantasy Basic Set Box. So we will catch you next time on Shane Plays. Please consider leaving a comment, a thumbs up on this video. If you have questions about what's in the box, I'll try to help answer them in the comments. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We will catch you next time on Shane Plays.